Hi everyone, welcome back to the This Is Me podcast. I'm Karen.
And I'm Ellie, and joining us today is Jennifer Lane. Jennifer is an author and energy healer who helps readers to explore and heal their own mental health. So Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today. And to begin with, why don't you just tell us a bit about who you are and how you got to where you are today?
Yes, lovely to be here. Thanks for having me. So, yes, I am an author and I primarily write about nature and witchcraft. So, I've been doing that for the past 4 years, but it's been quite a long journey to get there. Now, I've been writing about nature since I was a teenager and it went on into my early 20s. I have always been a very outdoorsy person, and when I was 19, I started bird watching as a way to have a hobby that me and my dad could do together. So we started going out to RSPB Leighton Moss, which is in North Lancashire, and Martin Mere, so places all over Merseyside, which is near where I grew up. And we really bonded over this. This was something that just consumed my life. I became a bird watcher at 19. And I know that a lot of my friends are just kind of catching up with me now in my 30s. They're like, oh yeah, birds are quite cool.
We like birds.
When I was
Yes.
it's just wonderful. I mean, yeah, it's really has brought me a lot closer to nature. Just being able to name what is around me and actually be outside, and so I know the bird calls, I know what I'm looking for, and I also know all the plant life around me. Because when I was in my early 20s, I did an internal no, I did a residential internship at Leighton Moss where I lived on site for 6 months. And I just completely immersed myself in nature. And some people stayed on for a year, but I just did those 6 months. And in those 6 months, it was just the most incredible spring and summer of my life, where I was just out all the time, learning, getting a real sense of what I got a real sense of what nature meant to people. Like, people were coming into the reserve and having this real wonderment with it. And so I think that's when my journey towards nature writing actually started.
How did you get the internship at Leighton Mears, did you say? How did you get that internship?
Leighton Moss, yeah.
I made up the two words there, haven't I?
So I'd been keeping an eye, so I knew these things existed, and my dream back then was to be the editor of the RSPB magazine. So I made sure that was kind of my selling point. So when I did finally interview for this job, I was like, yep, that's what I want to do. I want to be a nature writer and I want to be an editor. So that was how I think that's how I got the gig.
Yeah.
With my writing background. So I've got an English literature degree and a creative writing master's. So I've kind of had a good grounding in that. And then, yeah, so over the course of 6 months, I was just fully immersed in that, and it's never really stopped. Even though I'm, not a volunteer there anymore, I've thrown myself into nature in every aspect of my life. And it's what I write about on a daily basis.
So that's brilliant. No, I was just going to ask a question that's probably not related in any way, but I do need to check. Do you use the Merlin Bird app? Because I'm obsessed by the Merlin Bird app.
I only found out about this app 2 weeks ago, so I was out with my friend. What? I know. I feel like I've missed like a whole portion of my world. It's really strange. So yeah, the Merlin app, you can hold it up in nature and it tells you what birds are calling right there.
Oh yeah, me and Eleanor are always sharing the birds. Like, you sent one the other day.
I do it all like in the back garden, and it's all the same birds all the time, and I'm still like, wow,
it's a chiff chaff.
It's so amazing. I think I'm really, really blown away by this app, and I need to get it. But I only found out about it very recently.
And it's free. It's free as well.
Yeah, it's free. Yeah, it's brilliant.
What do you? Sorry, go on, Ellie.
Oh, sorry, go on. No, you go on.
I was going to say, when you're in nature, how does it make you feel then? Like, I love the word wonderment and I totally get that. But for you personally, how does it feel? What does nature make you feel?
So there's always that scientific element of being out in nature, like so being able to identify what's around you and like understand the soil structure and like understand why this plant is growing there because of all these different elements. But for me, it's always had that element of magic to it. So I've been practicing paganism since I was about 12 or 13 years old. I started very young. I was raised in quite a Christian household, and we all went to church. I went to a church school, and I decided quite young that this wasn't for me because it never talked about the feminine. It was always about the masculine. So for me, I decided to look at other paths, and when I found out that witchcraft is real, which I had read about, all throughout my childhood in all my like storybooks, and obsessed with Harry Potter from a very young age. And then I thought, oh, actually, people do this. This is a thing. So that just absolutely enthralled me. And a huge part of the pagan path and witchcraft is that coming back to nature and seeing the world as something that's alive. We're not the only things that exist in this world, us as humans. Everything is interconnected. And so that's something that I've really thought about when I've been on my walks. Yes, I can ID what's around me, but how can I sink down into the earth, and how can I feel the energy of what's around me? That's really made every walk that I've ever had have this like double layer of meaning. And so being able to go out into the woods and sort of slip between worlds, a lot of the pagan practice incorporates elements of shamanism, where you're drifting between all the different planes of existence and communicating with spirits, with animals, and each of them have their own different medicine. So I feel that I've really brought that aspect of paganism into my excitement about nature and into my writing as well. I think it's been a journey that's slightly different than other naturey folk, because I know that when I worked at the RSPB, a lot of people wanted to be wardens working in the conservation sector. It was highly sought after because people want to do good for the world, and it's really wonderful to see that. But I think that I always had this other strand to my love of nature, which came about through paganism and about wanting to connect to something deeper and bigger than myself. And I do see that in a lot of people who practice conservation and environmentalism. There's the idea of animism, that everything is alive and we're just all coexisting in this huge ecosystem. And the idea of reciprocity as well, so giving back to nature because nature gives so much to us. And something that I've really got a bit frustrated with in some of my jobs since is this idea of natural capital. So people putting a monetary worth on the benefits that nature brings to us. So you can think about all of the money that the NHS might save in sertraline prescriptions if people can get out in nature and help themselves, help their mental health. But there's like a monetary figure attached to that, and that really frustrates me because I see nature as something magical, and not something to be commodified like that. So yeah, I'm bringing that aspect of magic into my writing. And my first book, The Wheel, which came out in 2021, which feels like about 10 years ago now, that is all about my journey of reconnecting with nature after a really intense period of my life when I was working in an office environment that did not suit me at all. And I've realized this about myself, where I'm a freelance person. I want to do what I want to do, and I just really struggle in those contained environments where that don't let you go outside when you need to go outside, that don't really honor your body's cycles. So for me, the wheel was a journey through a whole year of the pagan calendar, the wheel of the year we call it, and about reconnecting and sinking down into the earth to remember what it's like to be human, what it's like to be a part of nature, and what it's like to be a wild animal. So yeah, I know that's a lot that I've just said there, but for me,
It's
nature is
fascinating.
just
No.
such a force, and I feel really grateful to have to sort of be in on that intel, so that I can help convey that to others.
And
Yeah,
it's
I
fascinating.
think I do. Yeah, I think it's fascinating as well. And I'm always saying that, like, I think sometimes as humans, like, we've gone too far as a species. Just like, I don't think we're not. This is great, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation, and this is wonderful. But there's no reason I should be able to speak to you like in this way, and like, yeah, what we've done in some ways is amazing, and in other ways we've just gone too far as a species. We don't need to do half the stuff
it's way
that
too
we
No, we
find
don't need
ourselves
AI.
doing.
It's not. I
No.
think that, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. And I think that the world is going too fast for our human bodies, and we need a
Yeah.
few more millennia, or maybe even just 100 years, to catch up with all the advancements that have happened in such a short space of time. So
Yeah.
no wonder a lot of people are burnt out and experiencing mental health issues, because everything is just too fast, and we physically and emotionally can't keep up with it. So a lot of what I do in my writing is teaching people how to work with nature and how to work with aspects of paganism to really boost their mental health and help them. I keep saying sink back down, but I think that's really important, to keep yourself grounded in this world that is going so lightning speed fast. So a lot of my writing, so Within the Wheel, and also my next book, The Witch's Survival Guide, that they all talk about ways that we can heal ourselves, and that we don't need other people to heal us. We have the tools to do this. We just need to get out in nature and look at what's around us, because when we're told that we don't have time to look at what's around us, we're just told to work until we're too exhausted. But actually, if we did take that time out, there's so many things that we can do to keep ourselves level and as part of the world, rather than just in our heads.
Yeah.
How did you? Sorry, go
I
on.
noticed in your writing, you talk. I was, well, maybe not a lot, but I think maybe it just interested me when I saw it. You talk about like a bit about slow living. Number one, I don't really think I understand exactly what it means, and then number two, how do you find yourself being able to practice that in the environment in which we live at the moment?
It's a very good question, because I would say that I definitely don't practice it 100% of the time.
Okay.
It is something that I'm learning to be better at, and I think it's something that benefits a lot of people. So when I think of slow living, I think of being mindful. So those moments in nature of actually watching the seasons go by in a way that helps us see our place in the world. It's not just about, oh yeah, it's sunny today, I need to wear this, let's go outside. It's about, oh, it's sunny today, which means this will be outside, this will be there. I can, honor the sunshine. It's almost like ritualizing the everyday, so that it becomes special and that we are more mindful in our practices. And that idea of seasonal living, about watching what we eat, making sure that we're eating seasonal goods, and not things that are shipped from so far away that they have no nutritional value by the time they get to us. I think it's about really being mindful about what we're putting into our bodies and how we're structuring our day, so that we're not just constantly scrolling on our phones and making the day pass as quickly as possible. Yeah, no, don't worry. I am 100% there with you with the scrolling. Last night I said to my husband, please lock my phone away. Take it away from me.
It's addictive, though, isn't it?
I had my
It's
partner at some
addictive.
point.
Excuse me. Apologies.
No, it really is. It is. It's really addictive. I had my partner at one point put, like you can do the screen time lock on you, and I made him set the password so that I couldn't put the password in and just turn it off. Because when I did it, I was just putting the password in and turning it off and carrying on scrolling.
I think one of the things that really resonated with me, apologies, is how fast this has happened. So, and particularly, I think it's really scary. Like if I think back to when I first went to work, I know I'm older than you two. If I think there was like 10 years of madness of development, and it's actually just got worse than that now. And if I think back, can't believe I scroll on my iPhone. Like even my husband, even me, we all do it. And it's just meaningless. All the stuff on it is meaningless. And I wonder what the reason is that they're doing that. What is happening that we're trying to almost stifle people's sort of challenge and creativity. You know, there's even a medical term for the eye hunch, which is the issue that people have got from looking at laptops and iPhones. It's like a bump on it.
Yeah, and these things are meant to be addictive and meant to keep us.
I was trying to get the word. It's not imprisoned,
Scared,
isn't it? But
I
scared, or
suppose.
there's something about
Yeah.
that. Like, oh, I must pick it up and look what's going on, or I must. And one of the things I think really, I don't work with what you do, but I work with coaching and with people's mental health, and they're constantly on the edge about like judgment or feedback or like reading something. Or somebody said yesterday, oh, I was pinged about some feedback about him. I thought, what does he mean pinged? But it was like a Microsoft Teams thing where somebody was giving him feedback. I thought, bloody hell, what are we doing? Apologies. What are we doing? And I think it's interesting, as Elle said, how do you help people come out of that? How do you help people step out of that addictive world? I don't really know. I don't know.
So I think there's lots of things we can be doing, but I do think nature is integral to that. That's something that I really do push in my own work because of the benefits that I know that I've felt, and that so many people feel. There was a study done a few years ago by Greater Manchester Combined Authority, and it was that for every 1% of tree cover in an area, people's mental health increased positively, and it was just showing that, you know, the greener the spaces that you live in, the more access you have to nature, the more likely you are to feel your own place in the world, and not that you are just stuck inside your own home, feeling lonely, feeling like everything on your phone is just there to scare you. I think that because of this constant access to information and access to feedback, like you say, Karen, like being pinged so instantly like that, you're almost scared to check your messages sometimes because something could be there that you don't want to see.
Yeah.
Or you have a Guardian update or a BBC News update, and it's the most terrible thing that's happened in the world ever, and you can just see it happening in real time. And no wonder we all feel stressed and anxious, and like we feel a bit hopeless, because what do we do about these things? But I think that the very first thing that people can do is get themselves grounded. And like, whenever I'm speaking to people, I'm saying, have you been outside today? Did you wear socks? Or did you wear shoes? Because I think it's really important to get your bare feet on the ground, and that's the process of earthing, of grounding. And they do say that there's been scientific studies about how the ions in your feet get neutralized by the Earth's energy. So if you're full of jangly, springy energy that is just making you feel quite anxious, by actually putting your feet or your hands on the ground, it neutralizes that in this incredible way. So like, Earth has this symbiotic relationship with us. It's trying to help us. It's saying like, can you hear me? Can you hear me? And it's like shouting at us, but we're just so attached to our phones, attached to our technology, or our work, or whatever we're doing in that moment, that we're not living mindfully enough for the Earth.
So what other top tips have you got?
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, what other tips have you got for us to live life more mindfully in nature?
Yeah, we get really into witchcraft, Karen.
Yeah, go for it. I mean, honestly, I was telling
yourself.
Ellie the other day about how I spoke to the moon about her house, you know, like because Jen helped me with using the new moon and the full moon. And whilst I don't understand how that works, it was really powerful for me.
Who cares?
It doesn't matter. I don't care. I mean, all of us on here are Reiki masters, which is for another conversation in a minute. But I didn't care. It made me feel focused. I said to Elle, I've spoken to the moon about your house, you know, like, and so I think sometimes you don't need to know or understand how it works. But I think witchcraft is a really interesting thing for you to talk to us about, because it has so many different connotations, doesn't it? So what's witchcraft in Jen's world?
So specifically in my world, I'm a green witch. So that's where you'll find me on all social media. I'm the Green Witch writer, or just as the Green Witch. And for me, green witchcraft is about working with herbs and plants, and that seasonal medicine, almost those folk remedies, to keep our bodies aligned with the world. So every springtime, I will go out and make a cleavers and nettle vinegar. So cleavers is that sticky plant, call it goosegrass or sticky willy, and you just see it everywhere. It gets stuck to your clothes and everything.
I know,
Oh,
yeah. So it's called cleavers, and cleavers is ruled by the planet Venus, so it's a feminine plant. And then you have nettle, which is, obviously we all know what stinging nettle is, and it's ruled by the planet Mars. So by having a vinegar or some kind of tincture, it's seen as a balancing tonic for the body because it brings together that masculine and feminine into one potion, as it were. So like by having that on my salads or in a bit of water, I'm helping to bring my body back into divine alignment. So a lot of witchcraft is about looking at the symbolism of plants around you and of animals. So at this time of year, like the countryside around me at the moment is full of hares, which is a sign of fertility, because we're in spring when the blossom's out. So it's about looking at those different themes of the year and working that into your magical practice, into your charms, your rituals, your potions. So does that answer your question? I feel like I've just gone off on one then.
No,
I think so.
I think it's interesting about helping everybody in this world understand there's lots of different ways to help themselves, and that I think witchcraft is a well talked about, well stereotyped subject, and I think it's interesting for people to understand, for us to understand. Actually, it's about working with nature. It's about working with what you've got, and I think that's so interesting. I mean, I'm going to have to ask you a question. I know it's probably going back a bit, but how on earth at 12 did you decide to do this? And what on earth? Where did you research it? It's like I've been thinking I must stop you, and I've got to ask you because that's pretty impressive. I don't know what I was doing at 12. So I would just be really interested in what on earth happened.
Yeah. Because I was trying to think about when I learnt about paganism, and it definitely wasn't at 12.
No, and how would you go and research it without?
How did it all start?
Yeah, how did it all start?
I've always been a big reader, always really been interested in lots of different subjects, but this all started really, so forget the Harry Potter, forget Charmed and Buffy, like all of this witchcraft media that we bombarded with in the late 90s. But when I was around 11, 12, there was a series called Wicca, which was a book series of 15 books, and it was about a young woman exploring her
my
witchcraft
children
path.
watched that,
and a lot of it was
my girls
it's a book series. It's a book. It's a I really wish it had been translated into a TV series or something. It would have been incredible. But yeah, it was a lot of it was fictional, but so much of it is based on the Wicca and witchcraft path. Wicca is like a subset of witchcraft that is a bit more formalised and ritualistic.
Wicca. Yeah,
I think it's probably got the same root. Yeah, same root word. But yeah, I was obsessed with this series. And then I think it was just like one summer holiday. We had very rudimentary internet. This is like 2002, I'm going to say. So I was just looking at Wicca, trying to find more about this book series, but then stumbled across a whole section of the internet that was about pentagrams and the four elements and about magic rituals, and I was like, oh, people are writing about this seriously. So it was back then, it was lots of websites with panpiped music playing in the background and very, very basic HTML, but you just you were absorbed in it back then. It didn't make any difference. But yeah, I was able to find lots of people who were genuinely practicing this, and magic had always interested me, and it was part of all the media that I consumed, whether it was TV, film, or books. So when I was 12, like this really, really hooked me, thinking that there was some kind of secret that I hadn't really been privy to before. It felt like it was some like extra knowledge that other people didn't have. So I became really a bit obsessive about researching this. And in the school library, there were even books about witchcraft, like more of the history side of it. And like you say, lots of people have been persecuted over the years for practicing this. So it was really interesting for me to see, to look at that history and see all the negatives of witchcraft. But actually, people were just worshipping the grass and, and like looking at a mountain and going, wow, isn't that great? It must be a symbol of the divine. So for me, it was just really, really beautiful. And I felt like it was very misunderstood at that point. So I'm very happy that in 2025, perceptions around witchcraft are changing. There's still some certain things that go on, and I was at an event for one of my fiction books, and a woman stayed behind afterwards and started saying that I was worshipping the devil, and I'm like, oh,
Right.
we don't believe in the devil.
That's not how that
a
works.
Christian thing. But she was very insistent that I was evil, so it was a pretty interesting time. But yeah, I'm very glad that for the majority of people, witchcraft has become a more positive movement.
Yeah, definitely. When did, like, for yourself, how, I don't know whether this is the right way to word the question, but like, how did you become, or did it take a while for you to become comfortable with it? Like, not, let me work out what I'm trying to ask you here. I guess what I'm trying to say is paganism, like witchcraft, energy healing, not something that a lot of people are open-minded to in any capacity, which, fine, whatever. If it's not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. That's okay. Was it something that you have always felt like strongly to go, no, actually, this is like, I'm gonna make a go of this for yourself? Or what do you think I'm trying to ask you here? Because I can't work it out.
It's a really good question because, yes, as you say, like, I was raised Christian, so why would I have any reason to doubt that as a path? Because everyone around me was practicing that. They went to a church school, but I think that something within that pagan path, it really spoke to me. Where in Christianity, like I said, it's that patriarchal religion. And I'd be sitting in church thinking, this isn't speaking to me. This isn't speaking to a 12-year-old girl from Merseyside. This is speaking to all the white men around me here.
Yeah.
And some of the things that it was said in church made me really heavily uncomfortable. So I wasn't actively seeking a new path to go down, but I think that when I discovered this was real, there was something about the mystery of it and something about the focus on the feminine. There's a huge aspect of witchcraft that focuses on the divine feminine, the goddess, over the god, whereas a lot of people do worship the god and the goddess as equal within witchcraft, within Wicca particularly. There was something about placing the importance of women at the top that really made me feel like, yes, this isn't what people are doing around me, but I feel that it's right. And I've always been someone that's gone on gut feelings. I have not an ounce of logic within me. It's all intuition, it's all feeling. And like, me and my partner are the complete opposites with that. So he's just like, yep, you go and do your nice little witchcraft rituals in the conservatory. And he'll be like thinking about trains or something. But I think it's really is something about intuition for me, and about just knowing when something is right. And I had an experience when I was around about that age, 12, 13, and I was just looking for ways to get deeper into witchcraft. Like, yes, okay, I've mastered the basics. I've got myself some crystals. I've got myself a herb garden that my mum let me plant. But how can I get deeper into this? My mum was great about this, by the way. She was just like, oh yes, another little interest that I can buy presents, for your birthday around. Taking me to Borders and Speak and looking at all the witchcraft section and things. It was just great. She's been fantastic. But yeah, I had this experience where I was looking into a guided meditation, and I now know that was some kind of shamanic trance that I got myself into, using a certain meditation. And I had a really deep experience where I astral travelled. And I now know there's a few dangers around that.
Jealous. I'm so jealous as well.
You can do it too. There's honestly, it's so accessible, but there's certain ways to get into it. Like, I think
I'll do it.
Go on.
So go on. So
it's Yeah, so I astral travelled for no particular reason. It was just like a Saturday afternoon or something. It wasn't like I had anything big questions to ask. But when I went into this, I shifted into this other realm, and I saw that it was this poppy field that expanded to just forever. Like there was no border, there was no barrier to this. And it felt like I was part of something a lot bigger.
Mm.
And I don't know whether this is from my Christian background that had me questioning, these things, and had you focused on your place in heaven or the world or whatever. But these animals came through to me and had messages for me, and then spirit guides. And I didn't really know what that was at the time. I was just listening to them going, yeah, that sounds great. This is wonderful. And sort of came back to my own body going, oh, yeah, I really enjoyed that and want to do it again. So I just kept doing it. I kept doing this astral travel and really experiencing those shamanic planes that I didn't have a name for at that time. And it was only in my mid to late 20s that I discovered actual shamanism. And just really realised that, I'd been practicing that when like 10 years ago, like 12, 15 years ago. And it was this really wonderful feeling of homecoming, that knowing that we can go outside of our bodies and experience other things and like look at magic close up. It's been something really fascinating to me, and yeah, I can't believe that I discovered all this so young, but it shaped my life in a way that I didn't think was possible. Like my whole world at the moment, I'm 35 at the moment, and ever since that, so for the past nearly 20 odd years, I've been a witch. I've been looking at the world in a slightly different way, and I think that is maybe what makes my writing a little bit more different than a classic nature writer, because I can see those elements of magic and different realms in there, which sounds like I'm really bigging myself up, but I just think that it's something that's so innate to me now because I've been practicing it for so long. It just feels completely natural to do that.
Do you think,
even if people think I'm a bit weird talking about it?
do you think like say like me and Elle want to go in astral travel? Yeah, because why would you not? Do you have to? I'm going to ask an L type. I'm trying to say here, is it in you?
My non-question.
I'm like, wait till you hear this one. Make of this what you want, Jen. Is it like, has it got to be in you to be able to access that, or can you learn it? Do you know what I mean? Was it like in you that you could like go to the poppy fields and all that, like, or could me and Elle learn it?
It's in all of us. It's in all of us. So I don't know the exact figures, but they say that when we were a non-agricultural society, when we were hunter and gatherers, 99% of spirituality back then was shamanism, where people would go into trances, would explore different worlds. So all of our ancestors pretty much would have practiced some form of this, and we can do it too. It's just being put to sleep in us a little bit because we're told that if we want to access spirituality, it's all outside of us and that we have to worship different things. But really, there's lots of different ways that we can get into that trance state. And I think, one of the most popular ways that people might have heard of accessing the trance state is taking ayahuasca. So things that you go to the like Peruvian jungles to go and do and have this like huge spiritual experience. But you absolutely do not have to get yourself into a drug-induced state.
I saw that on the telly. I saw that on something.
It sounds
terrified. I watched, I think it was Simon Reeve or someone do it, and I was like, oh my God, this is really not helpful.
It's incredibly dangerous, and people do, have very, very negative side effects.
I saw it. It was horrible.
And, it can be fatal. So there's lots of different ways that you can access a trance state, and one of them is through a repetitive drum beat. And there was an anthropologist called Michael Harner, and you can access his drum tracks on YouTube, and I do it all the time. They're like 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. And you can sink down into that trance state just because that's those drum tracks get you into a theta wavelength, which is that cusp, like on the edge of sleep. When we have our dreams, when we access different strange thoughts in our head, so we can get ourselves into that magical state, possibly, if you want to call it magical. But it's a way that we can access other information that's not available to us in the everyday.
Do you think spirituality has something you said earlier, and I was watching like the Pope's inaugural mass and all of that stuff. It's because it's quite historic. But when you start to think about how spirituality has become like confined to the privilege, it's almost like, you know, like you have had to have had 100 years study, and you've had to have had access to this person. Do you think that spirituality has been like given to the privileged?
I absolutely think that, so even, before the King James Bible, people would go to a Latin mass and they wouldn't know what was being said. You would just repeat things like inanely because it was what was being said around you. And it was to keep people in the dark and not accessing some higher purpose. It was to keep them lower. So I think it's wonderful that all of these things, like within shamanism and witchcraft, are so accessible to people. You don't need tools to practice, really. You need
No,
a
it's
YouTube
interesting.
drum track, which is
I'm
free.
gonna you need to tell
And
me his name
you
again, because
don't
I'm off
need.
for it.
I will, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'll send you it. It's called Michael Harner. But I think a lot of people within the witchcraft industry at the moment, I'm going to call it industry because it has become a bit of a powerhouse online. They said that, you need a specific candle for this, or you need to have access to a beautiful dress to practice a ritual or something like that. And it has become a bit more elitist and like driven by money, which I think feeds back into that idea of keeping religion and spirituality just for the privilege. The rest of you can just figure it out on your own. But I see it as part of this witchcraft movement online, is that shift into more capitalism.
Yeah.
And I really, really don't want that to be a part of witchcraft because it is so accessible. You just need yourself. You need yourself, a quiet space, maybe a natural space if you can, but really you just need yourself and being able to fall into a deep meditation to ask the divine what you want.
And I think like there's an element to that, and this is in my personal belief, is that there is an element to that is the same thing that runs through every type of religion. Is ultimately is that sort of you having that relationship with whatever that thing is that you believe in. And like interesting that you were saying about like it's becoming a bit more like capitalist, because I think even the same with ayahuasca. And I know nothing about ayahuasca or the practice of taking it or anything like that. But it is, like the reason that became popular is because it supposedly does exactly the same thing, gives you that space so that you can hear whatever it is that you need to hear. But it's that thing of how can, and I think this is where, again, I'm not really sure what I'm getting at here, but like it's that sort of thing, oh, well, it's popular and it's going to do, and people are into it, so everyone's going to say, right, you come and do this and we can help you and this is how this is great for you. In that sense, I think ruining the ritual of it, you're probably not getting the original, like what it was intended for in the first place. And that's, I think, I know I'm going on about the ayahuasca because I really do think that in the wrong hands it's really dangerous. You know what I mean? Like you don't know what you're doing. And I think, anyway, all of that to say that like there is an element of all spirituality that is sort of taken over by that, like, oh no, like, like organized, like we'll make it an organized religion type thing.
We'll make it a thing. And you're right. You will make it a thing.
And to me, it's like, I wouldn't even say I'm an overly spiritual person, but I just think that, like, to go back to I think what my original point might have been, is that I think that, through any religion there's the element of don't be a shit person, like just don't be shit, and also like it's about your relationship with whatever
it is
your version of spirituality is. Thanks, Your Honour. No.
I think it's a really good point. I've been thinking about this for a while, and I think you said it, Jen. So much good stuff, when people see people need it, they start to capitalize it. Like, so everything, to your point, Elle, everything people need, people monetize. You can see, like my background, as you know, is coaching, and I've seen how that's been monetized over the last decade. And I think people have forgotten that actually they're helping vulnerable people. And I think there's a lot I think we've forgotten. I think we've forgotten about intuition 100%. B, I think everybody sees a quick book. Do you know, like, and I think that people at this moment need, to what Elle was saying, a relationship with something that gives them hope. You said it earlier. I think if we had more hope in this world, everybody just wants a quick book. It drives me insane.
Yeah.
But you're right. You helped me with something. I went out and did. I don't even care whether what its science was or anything. I went and the moon. It helped me. It grounded me. You know, like somebody probably thought I said to my husband, I'm going to speak to the moon. Like, he's like, all right. Like, but I think if we can give people,
As you should.
yeah. But I think people need to have access, which I guess is what Women of Our Time's about, to things that help them, that are free, that they've got in their gift. And I think we have to give people like you that voice, that platform. Everybody's got to earn money to live, so it's not that we're being very noble. I'm like Eleanor now. I've gone off on a rant. I think everybody needs to have their fair share of money to do good. But yeah, Your Honour,
there's a fine line between it, and you can totally understand in this economy why people would try and capitalize on that. But I think that because I believe that spirituality is as natural as breathing, and it would be like trying to ask someone to pay to take a deep breath. So I think that if we learn the basics of how to connect with the world, I think that we can really strengthen our mental health and resilience in a world that tells us that we should be disconnected from everybody and everything around us. So I think that by teaching those very basics, people can then build on that, but you have those building blocks to be able to say, right, I understand my place in the world and how I'm connected to it. And it doesn't have to be through nature spirituality or you don't have to go practicing full witchcraft rituals in the woods. But I think just kind of understanding how you can sink down into the earth, how you can look at the sky and understand that you are a part of some macrocosm. It's there's something bigger out there. I think that can be very, very helpful to people. But yes, this is one particular path, and I'm sure there are many, but this is a path that has really helped me, and I think it has the ability to help a lot of other people.
Yeah. So I have a question then. So you said earlier that you've like been sort of doing all of this stuff in, let's say, like a professional capacity only really for the last, did you say 4 or so years, did you say? So I think it takes a lot of courage to decide, because I'm presuming, well, you said earlier you were sort of like in a corporate environment. To be in that environment, which might not be the most conducive thing for you, but you do know that it's safe, it's steady. There's like to decide, hang on, no way, I'm not doing this anymore, takes a lot of courage. What was it that sort of pushed you over the edge to go, no, I'm going to give this a go?
So there were two things really. So the first one is a slightly more negative reason. It's because I was going through, this is pre-pandemic extreme burnout, which a lot of people experienced during the pandemic. But I was a forerunner of the burnout movement.
Always ahead of the curve.
But yeah, so this was 2019. And I was really, really struggling with my mental health and feeling so cooped up and thinking about the job I was in at the time and thinking, is this all there is to life? And I knew that I had always wanted to write. I'd always considered myself to be a writer. I wrote a lot of teenage poetry. And then I got my degrees in writing. And I'd written a couple of books in my 20s that I'd never really done anything with or got them published. But I felt like because of this burnout and the subsequent recovery that I was going through, I wanted to write a book that reflected that journey and that was going to help other people. And this is going to sound very worthy when I say this. I know what it sounds like, but I feel like I've got a drive within me to write to help other people. I feel like there's some kind of push within me to do some kind of good with this skill that I have. So in the wheel, I wanted to write a book that was accessible to people, that was going to make people, well, help people relate to me and my situation, because I think so many people in their late 20s, early 30s, they go through this, they call it a Saturn return in astrology, but it's this moment in your life where you start to reconsider everything around you and go, oh, this isn't the path that I want to go on. So I was kind of on this journey, and from feedback that I've had about the wheel, a lot of people really resonated with that, and just feeling so stuck in the corporate world and like there was no other path for them. And so by helping people return to nature, by looking at the different festivals on the wheel of the year, so you have Samhain, which is Halloween, and Beltane, which is May Day, and by putting yourself on that wheel of the year, you can really start to reconnect with the cycles and seasons of the world. So whilst it was a huge financial risk for me, I did make sure that I'd saved for at least a year so that I did have some money to fall back on, because I tried to be as practical as possible. I'm not very logical, but I can be practical when I need to be.
Yeah.
So I had made sure that I was able to do this at least in the short term. So I gave myself a few months off to be able to write this, before going into my freelance career as a writer and communicator. So it was not an easy decision by any means. It wasn't just right, I'm going to give all this up and just go, right, I'm going to write books now. It was very carefully planned out, but it was definitely spurred on by the burnout that I was feeling with my corporate job, because that, for me at least, that isn't what I wanted to do. It wasn't my path. I didn't feel like it was really helping anybody. And so when I've considered the world of work in my future life, since then, everything has been with charities, with like organizations that have a mission, like B corporations, to be able to help people. So yes, I'm very aware of how worthy that sounds, but it's just something that drives me as a person.
Yeah, I don't think it's worthy. I think it's your purpose, your passion, I think you have to, if you follow your purpose and your passion, and you can't do that all the time, because that's, the world isn't like that. But if you can do it most of the time, you will do good. And I think it's what I think is interesting for me is that you recognise burnout, and Ellie said used the word courage, but I'm interested whether it was courage or whether it was need, that you knew you had to get out of it.
It was, to be honest, I think it was need in those first instances. Yeah, I think maybe the courage came a bit later.
Yeah.
But I do think that when you're in a situation like that where every day just feels unbearable, because that's what burnout is, it makes you feel like you can't exist in a joyful world and experience. So for me, it was about changing that for the better, and making sure that, because I knew I couldn't continue to live that way. As much as I tried to force it and go, right, no, this is what everybody does. Everybody has a 9 to 5, go and do this. But it wasn't for me, and it wasn't the path that really that suited me best.
Yeah, I do think it's a bit crap that we have to wait. We'll push ourselves to that point before we go, right, okay, I'm going to be physically ill soon, so now I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing, which I don't think is anyone's fault. It is how we've managed to structure society.
Definitely.
I think Leslie and I used to talk about how you wished you could recreate the trigger that a trauma gives you to really drive people to change, but you can't. So if you look at all the people we work with, and probably you work with, there's something significant that's brought them there. But as Ellie said, it's something horrible. It's something horrible. And I think you can't drive that change because people don't have that burning platform. And sometimes you must feel like it, and we do. You're talking almost into the air, because if people aren't listening because they haven't got that need, it's just like white noise, isn't it? And but yeah, it's a fascinating thing about how do you do that without people having to have trauma. Well, what's next for you then, Jen? What's the next few years for you going to bring, other than world domination of witchery? I don't know whether that's the right word. Apologies.
Obviously, yeah,
I've made my own word up now.
The world's favourite witch.
World's
So
favourite.
for me, so it's continuing to So I want to continue to grow my Reiki practice. So as you said, we're all energy healers here, all Reiki masters. So I have a practice of distance Reiki, so that I can do it from my home, but help as many people as possible throughout the world. So I've got clients in Croatia and Switzerland and the
me.
US and everything, and I'm just here, and you, and I'm just here in my little house in Lancashire.
Yeah. No,
But yeah, so
I love your
I want to
Reiki.
grow.
I love your Reiki
Oh,
report,
thank
which is
you.
always nature driven. Like it's like reading a chapter of a book when you send what's come through, and it's like, oh my god, now I know you're in the poppy field. So, like, yeah,
That's where I am. That's the state that I'm in when I'm doing this.
makes
Yeah, so
absolute
after the
sense
sessions,
now.
I do. Yeah, no, I really enjoy doing those write-ups because I feel like it gives people a sense of what I actually saw during the session. Because I think maybe people might have a certain idea of what distance Reiki is, almost that it's a bit of a scam, that I'm just sending some energy waves across the ether. But no, I'm actually in a deep trance state, and this is what I saw step by step with each chakra and how you can continue to work on that outside of sessions as well. So I'm glad you think that that is
Oh no, I love
useful.
it.
That's really
Absolutely
great
love
to
it. I
hear.
can thoroughly recommend it. And I whatever you do, like I
Thank
wear
you.
my orange. If you say I've got to wear orange, I just think what I really love about what you do is it gives you really practical tools that you can do without anybody having to ask anybody else, and you give it with such free will, which I think is really unique in this world. You know, you never hesitate to give free advice, which I think is amazing. So yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I want to be, like I've said before, I want to make this as accessible as possible. So my writing in every aspect, so including these write-ups, is hopefully, it gives people ideas on what they can do outside of having to pay for another holistic session. It's something that you can do in the comfort of your home, which is great. But also for me, so I have a Substack, so that is the Green Witch on Substack, and I really enjoy writing that. I have a paid membership that people can access every week, or I do free posts fairly regularly about how you can engage with witchcraft. And I also have my 5th book, which is coming out in the end of winter, start of spring next year, and that is called Underwing. I'm very excited to start talking about that. It hasn't been officially announced, so that is all I can say at this current time.
Boo!
If you need us to take that bit out, we'll keep the clip so you can use it like when you're allowed to talk about it.
Nice, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So you are the Green Witch everywhere, or the Green Witch writer. You've just launched your own podcast as well. Is that the Divine?
The
I'm not going to say
Divine
it.
Void.
That's what I was going to say. I didn't want to get it wrong.
Yes, so The Divine Void, it was released on the 1st of May this year, and we've got our 2nd episode out very soon. So that is a podcast that I do with my fellow witch and writer, Laura Derbyshire, and she's the Bower Hare on every platform. She's just incredible. And we talk about the liminal spaces within witchcraft. So I've written a lot previously about the festivals of the Wheel of the Year and like how we can engage with that seasonally. But what about those spaces within between the festivals, and how can we keep our witchcraft practice going? What about the folklore associated with these times of year? And it's something that we really get into deeply on the podcast. And we also just have a nice chat. So that's great too.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Awesome.
Okay, so last and final question then. It's a question that we've asked to everyone so far. If you had to choose a song to be the theme song for your life, either overall or at the moment, what would you choose?
I'm going to have to pause here because I still don't have an answer to this, right?
That's okay.
I'm really like, oh my God. So, right. Okay, I'm going to go with a basic bitch answer. You could cut that bit out. But
That's
yeah,
fine.
okay.
I'm not cutting it out either.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
No, will
So
if you want me
it's
to.
really strange. This question has absolutely baffled me because, so for the past couple of years, I have not really listened to that much music. I've just been listening to frequencies and like meditation music and things,
Well, that's
because
fine.
that's the sort of space I'm in my head. But I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan,
Oh.
and I just can't stop listening to Taylor Swift. So I'm going to go for the most basic answer and say shake it off, because yes, I've had a lot of setbacks in my life, and that burnout period really, really did get to me for a very long period of time. But I have shaken it off, and I feel like I have come to this period of my life where I'm in a creative space. I feel like I have a lot more agency over my career and the path that I'm on, and it's really exciting. And it just goes to show that you can do that inner work and shake off all of the negativity around you and come out on top. So yeah, I feel like that is, like I said, the most basic bitch answer I could have given.
No,
But
not
I
at
think
all.
it really does work with where I'm at in my life right now.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah,
You really
no,
love
that's
it.
been brilliant.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
this whole conversation has been fascinating. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
thank you very
That
much
was
for
really,
having me.
really interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no problem at all. And thank you to everyone for listening. And we will put all of Jen's information in all of the places where you're supposed to put information. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.